We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek Chav Dalet, volume 24. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas Devarim. It's a Rashi Sicha. And the Rebbe explains many diyukim. The Pasuk says that Moshe was speaking to the Yidden. He's saying to them, Rab lochem sheves bahor hazeh. What does it mean, the Rab lochem? In Pshat, it means that it's too long that you've been sitting here. The Rashi brings the Medrash Agoda that teaches Rab lochem means there's a lot of reward for sitting in the mountain. And the Rebbe goes through a lot of the details why Rashi needs the Medrash Agoda, and also in the Medrash Agoda that Rashi quotes, there's a lot of difficulties in the way Rashi quotes it. It changes it from the Sifri, and on and on. But the Rebbe makes the point in the Sicha that that the issue is here really what's bothering Rashi is why are we saying they were sitting by Har Sinai? Har Sinai seems to be a positive, something good. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu saying Rab lochem? It's enough. Why would it be? Why would be enough? And because of that, Rashi adds that it means that there's a lot of reward, not in the Pshute, as the Rebbe goes through a lot of the details, and the Rebbe brings out that even if we're learning that you're having a lot of gedula, a lot of greatness, as he says in the Medrash, but this was all in order to haste bringing them into Eretz Yisrael. Because the place where the pasuk is said, Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to them in Arvis Moav, and they were about to go in, and Moshe Rabbeinu was basically sharing with them that really they should have gone into Eretz Yisrael 40 years ago, or whatever, 39 years ago, when after Matan Torah they were supposed to go in, and then so now as they're going into Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu is recounting to them, and he wants to bring out how the Eibishter really intended to bring him in as quickly as possible, had it not been because of their sins. As the Rebbe will explain in detail, we'll go step by step. Aleph. Devarim Beis, Aleph, Ois Aleph. Noch der Hagdama betchilas Parshasenu, after the introduction, at the beginning of the Parsha of Devarim, the pasuk tells you back in the matzav, the condition, the zaman, umokim, the time and the place, wo Eden und Moshe haben sich gefunden, where the Jewish people and Moshe found themselves, b'shas amiras Mishnah Torah, when Moshe was repeating the Torah, reviewing with the Bnei Yisrael the Torah. So the Torah tells us the time and place. Haupton the Torah iber zu geben, was Moshe hat gesagt, die Eden. So then the Torah begins to relate that which Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Eden. So basically, the first sentence, the first item, so the pasuk begins, Hashem Elokeinu diber eleinu b'chorev leimer. Hashem, our God, spoke to us in Chorev, that's Har Sinai, saying, Rav lochem sheves bahor hazeh. It's enough for you to sit at this mountain, the mountain of Har Sinai of Chorev. It's enough. Time to go. Stellt sich Rashi oiv Rav lochem sheves. So Rashi places himself on the words, it's long enough for you to sit. When it's mefarish kipshuta, it means literally meaning Time has come to move on. You sat for a long time. It was almost a year that they were there. And the Pasuk says, Moshe Rabbeinu says that the Eibishter says, it's time to move. But Yesh Medrash Agodah. But Rashi further says there is an Agodic drasha, a Medrash, that what does it mean? Rav Lochem Sheves Bahor Hazeh. Harbe Lochem Gedulo Uschar. Rav Lochem means you get a lot of greatness, a lot of reward. Al Yeshivaschem Bahor Hazeh, for sitting at this mountain. Lots of reward. Lots of greatness, lots of reward for sitting in the mountain. What does Rashi articulate? What are the reward? Asisa Mishkan, you built a Mishkan. Menoira v'kelim, you built the candelabra and the other vessels. Kibaltem Torah, you received the Torah, all at this har. Manisem lochem Sanhedrin, you appointed for yourself the Sanhedrin, the court. Sorry, alofim v'sorei meyav, officers over thousands and officers over hundreds. That's the Rashi. So, first of all, why does Rashi have to deviate from the simple pshat and bring down the Medrash Agodah? Why can't we just say Rav Lochem Sheves, he's sitting long enough? What's Rashi's problem? So we need to understand Aleph number one. Rashi b'pirushe al haTorah kumdoch mefarish zayin pshutish al mikra. Rashi on his Torah commentary is here to explain the literal meaning of the verse. Haint, so the question is, Farvos bagnugun der sich nit mit pirush kipshutoy. Why isn't he satisfied with the meaning kipshutoy? Rashi says that is the meaning is kipshutoy. So why does Rashi need to go on to bring down the Agodah? As Rav Lochem main dai lochem. What is the kipshutoy? It means that it means sufficient for you. Bring to medrash Agodah. Why does he have to bring down also an Agodic medrash? Why can't he just leave it with the pshutoy? So the Rebbe brings down that some Mefarshim say that instead of Rav Lochem, the pasuk should have said Dai Lochem. That's Rashi's problem. But the Rebbe says we find in other places this would not be Rashi's problem. So why does Rashi have to say anything? Other Mefarshim learn, the Mefarshim learn as Leuten Ersten Pirush is schwer, that according to the first interpretation, it's difficult. Because according to the meaning that it's sufficient, it should say clearly, Dai lochem, nit Rav lochem, not a lot to you, but sufficient to you. The Rebbe, however, says a belachayde is doesn't need kosher. That's seemingly that's not really difficult. But we find freer in Pirush Rashi because we already find earlier in Rashi's commentary, as teaches Rav, he teaches the word Rav Dai, that is sufficient. Und bringt nicht kein zweiten Pirush, and he doesn't bring a second commentary. So why would Rashi have to bring here a second commentary? Because it says Rav instead of Dai, when Rashi himself says it in Va'era Perik Tes Pasuk Chav Ches that it means the means Dai, and it doesn't really need any other interpretation. So why isn't Rashi satisfied? And number two, in Zweiten Pirush, as Rav is for Loshen Ribui Harbe Lochem, that means a lot. So Rashi goes on to give us a whole long Rashi over here. So Rashi says, Ribui Gedula was Eden haben Bakumen Bahar Hazeh, the lots of greatness that the Yidden received this mountain. Rashi, isn't it verstandig? So here we don't understand why Rashi chooses to bring down some of these details in the greatness. Eins. So number one, we don't understand Farvos Rechent Rashi Protim Fun Gedula Vostein in Medrash Agoda. Why does he count or enumerates details? What the greatness? Rashi said the greatness. He brings down that which are stated in the Medrash Agoda. The Shitosei, but according to Rashi's style, the way Rashi explains everything in Pshat, Pshuta Shal Mikra, hat gedacht bringen die Gedula, was hat sich aufgetan Bahar Hazeh, he should have brought the greatness that was accomplished at the mountain, which is Mefurish in Pshuta Shal Mikra, which the Pasuk calls it something great happened. The Pasuk says, Haniya Kadovar Hagodel Hazeh. Has there been such a great thing? So what is the great thing we're talking about? Or does anybody ever heard anything like this? Hashoma Am Koil Elikim Medaber Mitechesh Komer. Has a nation then ever heard the voice of God speaking from the fire? So the Hashem speaking a Matan Torah, that was the Dover Godel, Dover Godel Hazeh. So when Rashi wants to articulate what is the Gedula, that there was a lot of Gedula at the mountain, Rav Lochem means that there was Harbe Gedula, that they got a lot of Gedula. Why doesn't Rashi bring down what they did, the Hashem's appearance at Har Sinai for Matan Torah? Now, Rashi does mention receiving the Torah. It doesn't mention the Toicha Eish and the Koila Lekim. Rashi the Mont Nor Kabbalas HaTorah. Rashi does mention you received the Torah. Kibaltem Torah, Rashi says. Aber nitem Hashem aham Koila Lekim goimer, but not had the people heard the voice of Hashem. Bamatan Torah was their Posik Gufa Ruftes Dover HaGodl. That's the Pasuk refers to Aniyah Kadover HaGodl. Wasn't the fact that he didn't receive the Torah, but it was that Shama Am Koil Likim Medaber Mitecha Eish. That Koil Likim Medaber Mitecha Eish, the voice of Hashem that spoke from the fire. So the first question is, why Rashi doesn't bring this great thing that the Pasuk calls it a great thing. And on the other hand, some of the things that Rashi does bring down doesn't seem like they are earth-shattering. They're such great things. Zwei, in the Inyonim was Rashi rechent, in those matters, those aspects, those Inyonim that Rashi does mention, does count, is nit oif azoifil niker di gedula. It is not so much recognizable, the greatness was is nischadish geworden in Zeh Bahar Hazeh. You don't see the novelty that came about on this mountain, over Godel on this mountain. For example, Kibaltem Torah, received the Torah and mitzvahs. That's not such a great thing. Is nitin ganzen adover chodesh. This is not something entirely new. This is not something totally new. Weil shoin Adam Harishon, already first man, and then Abraham, v'chul, etc. Haben mekabel given hoirois Torah. They received instructions that is Torah. And then you have the Bnei Noach kulam, all of them Bnei Noach, meaning all mankind. Seinen nitztabi geworden, die Zayin mitzvahs. They have been commanded for the 7 mitzvahs. Then we know this is given Yeshivas Shem ve'Ever. There was the school, the study place of Shem and Ever. So these are all people have a connection to Torah. This wasn't something totally new at Matan Torah. By Eden, haben Torah mitzvahs, and this is with regards to humanity in general. And by Yidden, Adam, Bnei Noach, and by Yidden haben Torah mitzvahs sich angeheben von die Ovis. by Yidden, they specifically Torah mitzvah started by the forefathers, and then the other thing that Rashi mentions that they Manisi Lachem, they had the Sanhedrin. So also the Sanhedrin was not something new. Euch der Inyan von Sanhedrin, Shoftim, judges, is given Lifnei was earlier. Even by Goyim, there were judges. Kemuvim bepashtus, as understood in Pashtus, the Rebbe bring down. It's obvious that there was Shoftim over there, and the Rebbe brings down some Rashis where Rashi mentions the Shoftim. The Koshke v'Kal v'Chemer by Yidden, for sure by Yidden. So this wasn't a new concept, a new idea of making judges. So why is this called Dover Godel? So the Rebbe has two questions. On one hand, a Dover Godel, he listened to Hashem's voice from the fire. Rashi doesn't mention it. And the things that Rashi mentions about Kabbalah Satorah and appointing a Sanhedrin are not something entirely new that took place by Hazeh. So why is this such a Godel? Why is this such a great thing? In Ois Beis, the Rebbe is going to continue to ask several questions in the Agod interpretation that Rashi brings down. First of all, is the order, the way it took place. So Rashi says they built the Mishkan, and they got the Torah, and they appointed Sanhedrin. That doesn't exactly fit the order. Noch die Yukim den zweiten Pirush, Aleph. So number one, the Seder vi Rashi rechen din Yonim. The order as Rashi mentions this, Mishkan, they built a Torah, they received the Sanhedrin. Stimmt nicht mit Seder Hazmanim wenn sie seinen geworden. That does not chronologically fit when things happen. Because Firir is given Kabbalah Satorah. First, the Yidden received the Torah. That took place on Bov and Zayin Siva. The Noch Minu Sanhedrin. And then the Sanhedrin, which the Rebbe brings down in the Ha'ara over here, that came after Yisro's argument, and Moshe Rabbeinu had already been doing judgment beforehand, because when Yisro says you'll be tired because you can't do it alone, so that means that Moshe Rabbeinu was doing it alone. What was he doing? After he received the Torah, he appointed the Sanhedrin. And only afterwards, this took place the next month, in Rosh Chodesh Nisan, was when they inaugurated the Mishkan. After the 7 days of inauguration, they finally stood it up on the Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Sefer Akamas HaMishkan. And then was the Akamas HaMishkan. Rashi starts with Mishkan, and then he goes to Torah, and then he goes to Sanhedrin. Why is there such a change? That's one thing. Also, Rashi specifically mentions the menorah. Why not the Mishkan v'Kelim? Why mention menorah specifically? It's one of the Kelim. Based, the other question is Rashi zogt Mishkan menorah v'Kelim. Ois getelt menorah from Sharkelei ha Mishkan. He separates, distinguishes, and he puts menorah in its own without, besides all the other Klei Mishkan. Mishkan v'Kelov, stop. Why doesn't he just say the Mishkan, the vessels? Was his koilel the menorah? That would include the menorah. Why mention menorah separately? And then the third issue we have is that he only mentions Sodi Meis and Sodi Alofis. What about this? What about the Sodi Chamishim, Sodi Asoris? Gimel. Rashi touched up Sanhedrin, Sodi Alofim, Sodi Meis. The officers over 1,000, over 100, on his mashmit, the Sori Chamishim, the Sori Asoris, and he does not mention, he doesn't mention the officers of 50 and the 10. They were there too. Why does Rashi skip over them? So these are understanding the Rashi itself. So the Rebbe, first of all, the order of Rashi doesn't fit the chronological order. Why does Rashi specifically mention menorah outside of Old Kelim? And why does Rashi just mention Alof Sorameis and not Chamishim and Soreasaris? And then the Rebbe says, look in this source over there, it's Taka mentioned not like Rashi. The Kashis were noch starker, the questions become even stronger. Shas Menzet, that you see as in Sifri, that in the Sifri was his L'chaira, the Mocker, that seems to be the source of Rashi, as the Rebbe brings down in the note, the order 17, that it fits mostly the language of Rashi. So in this Sifri, was his L'chaira, the Mocker for Rashi's Pirush, which seemingly is the source of Rashi's commentary, Shtei Take Asiyas HaMishkan Noch Kabbalas HaTorah. So over there, the making of the Mishkan is written after the Torah, Minu HaSanhedrin, which does follow the chronological order, and Rashi changes that. It also state Mishkan the Kelim. It just says the Mishkan the Kelim. It does not single out as nit oisgitel the menorah. It does not separate and bring down menorah specifically. Und es bringt sich euch sorry chamishi sorry asori. So there it says the officers for 50 and the officers for 10. So all these three questions that we had in Rashi, we don't have them in the Sifri. So Rashi goes and changes it from the Mocker and seemingly causes these three question problem that we have. Or Rashi is Mishana, and Rashi changes only in drei Pratim, in three details. In the zweiten Teil allein von seinem Pirush, in his second part of his commentary, he changes it from Mocker Pirush from the source of his commentary. That's the second part where Rashi enumerates what the Sechar is, the details. In the first part, Rashi says, B'chlal, what is the Gedul over here? And here we also find changes from the way it's in the Sifri, and Rashi quotes from the Sifri, the first part of the Rashi. Euch Gimel, euch darf man verstehen den Tam von die Shinuyim, the Chelek ha'alef from Pirush Rashi. You need to understand the reason of the changes in the first part of the Rashi's commentary, L'gabe mekoyre b'Sifri, when we measure it next to the source of the Sifri. Aleph, number one, Rashi says two things. Schar of Gedula is Sifri, it only says Schar. In Sifri state Bloi Schar Hulachem, it's a reward for you, being at the mountain, it's Rav Lochem. Rashi is Moisif Nochaninya and Gedula B'Schar. Rashi says greatness in Schar. It's another change from the Sifri. Number two, in the Sifri, it's mashma that the schar is sitting on the mountain, and in Rashi, it's a schar for sitting at the mountain's base. In Sifri is the loshen schar hu lachem yeshivaschem b'hor hazeh. This is a reward for you for sitting at the mountain. The yeshiva gufa is the schar. The sitting there itself is the reward. Rashi zokt ober, but Rashi, however, says, you you're gonna get a lot of greatness and reward for sitting at this mountain. As der Sechar is a teitzoeh for yeshivaschem bahar hazeh. The reward is a result from sitting at this mountain. And number three is also over there. It says in Sifri that the Eberster appointed these judges, and over here it says that the Yidden appointed the judges. Gimel, the Loshen HaSifri is, the languages in Sifri is Monisi Aleichem, that I appointed on you. The Eberster hat me manegven, the Eberster appointed. Or Rashi Zok Benisim Lochem, that you appointed them. as the Eden haben Manne given, the Eden appointed. So, what's the reason of all these changes that the Rebbe brought out? That Rashi adds the word Gedula to the Lashon of the Sifri of Schar. And Rashi changes the Sifri, it says the reward is the sitting on the mountain. And Rashi says it's a reward, you're going to be rewarded for sitting on the mountains. In the Sifri, the language is that the Eberster appointed the judges, and in Rashi is that you appointed judges on yourself. So, Dalet. The Rebbe first explains what is the meaning of the word Rav Lochem and Pashtus. It doesn't just mean that it's enough. Like you say, enough, now go. Rav Lochem has the connotation, the meaning, it's already too long that you've been sitting here. As if to say, oh, you shouldn't have been sitting here so long. And the question is, what's wrong? Sitting at the Har Sinai was a positive experience. Dalet. The Bir B'chol said, what's the explanation in all this? Rav Lochem b'Pashtus meint, it says Rav Lochem means, as es is nit nor dai lochem. It's not just mean it's enough. It's eich genug, it's enough for you. Nor mer therefore means more than just enough. Rav Lochem, it's too viel farach, it's too much for you. Mer genug, it's more than enough. The Rashi is befarish the posuk. Where Rashi explains the posuk. When the Koirach were complaining to Moshe, so he says, "Vayomru aleihem," they said to Moshe and Aaron, "Rav lochem, too much." Fontaines Koirach va'adosei to Moshe and Aaron. The argument of Koirach and his group on Moshe and Aaron. Harbe yoser Rashi taich b'dai, way too much. You took for yourself greatness. So we see that the word Rav Lochem means more than enough. This is by Rashi in Shveri Nunzer Posik. This is difficult for Rashi in our verse. Rav Lochem Sheves Bahorazeh. It's too much for you to sit at this mountain. Harbe Yoser Midai. This is way too much sitting. The Erech Hazman from Yeshivascha Bahor Hazeh, the length of time that you're sitting in this mountain is way too long. Why would it be too long? When Eden have Mekabel given noch und noch in Torah mitzvahs, they kept on receiving more and more in Torah mitzvah. Seinen doch given kein hechrochi. That was like they had to stay there to get all the other mitzvahs and more Torah. Ungebracht hat alles gedoyle, that brought a tremendous benefit. And the Sotzei Oich der Mont Kolazman, also while they were staying there, it reminded them all the time the Maimed Har Sinai v'chulu, the standing at Mount Sinai, etc. Bis the extent the mountain got the name that Har Elikim, the mountain of God. So it's a godly mountain. Staying there inspired them, impressed them to be in the presence of the Har Sinai. Is l'chol hayoser damas in the lotion over here, the proper language would not be Rav Lochem Sheves, but it would be Dai Lochem. How could we say more than enough? Rashi, so therefore Rashi cautions us. As Afal Pikain is the Pirush Harishon Ve'ikri, still, notwithstanding the difficulty, the first and main pshat from Rav Lochem, Kipshute, it means literally. Because the message, the content, and the flow, the topic, the subject that the Pasuk is trying to discuss here, for this, it's too much. Is given the Rav Harbe Yeser Midai, Lochem Sheves Bahor Goymer Kutlukaman. Over here, for that aspect, this is too much for the aspect of what they're trying to accomplish here, as the Rebbe will say, to get to Eretz Yisrael as quickly as possible, as the Rebbe will explain. And now the Rebbe is going to point out that this whole statement that Moshe says, Hashem Elokeinu Diber Eleinu, we don't find that the Abish are giving a Dibur. In Parshas Ba'aloischo, it says that on the 20th day, and they moved. It doesn't say this whole Diber Eleinu, Rav Lochem, Prav Shmul, Pnu, Usulochem. It wasn't necessary to record all that in the Pasuk, but over here, as they were about to go into Eretz Yisrael, and it took so long, so Moshe Rabbeinu is going back and saying to them, that's what happened then, that the Eibishter was saying, Rav Lochem, you should have already been going into Eretz Yisrael. Hey, we'll understand it by introducing first a general question. Was der ganze Inyan von die erste drei Psukim, the entire subject of these first three verses, was Moshe da gesagt zu Eden, which Moshe said to the Eden, as is given a dibur meyuchat von dem Ebersten, that there was a very special saying from Hashem. So Moshe was recording here and saying to them, Hashem Elokeinu Diber Goimer Pnu Usu Goimer. Hashem spoke to us three verses: move and journey. Reino Sati Goimer. I've given you Uzara Machareim for the seed afterwards. Everything that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying over here that Hashem told him, we don't find a record of this in the portion of where it talks about when the Jews left Har Sinai. Werd in ganzen Niedermont in Chumash Bamidbar. This is entirely not mentioned in the Chumash of Bamidbar. Der Iker Ort, wo es retzich wegen der Nisia von Midbar Sinai. That's the main place in where the Chumash talks about the journey from Midbar Sinai. The Pasuk Zok Tor Nor. The only thing that the verse says over there, by Hibashona Hashemis, it was the second year. Bachoidesh Hashemi, it was the second month. Be'esrim Be'iyar, Be'esrim Bachoidesh, on the second month, that was the month of the year, but at the 20th of the month, Nala Ha'ona Nal Mishkan Ha'edus, that's when the cloud went up from over the Mishkan of the Edus, the Mishkan. And the Jews journeyed to their journeys in the Midbar Sinai. But we don't find this pasuk over there. Their tam therefore is moving. So what's the reason? It's understood. Here, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to describe for the Jews the Mahalach Yonim, how things went along, how things took place. Beginning from the situation the way it was at the time of Matan Torah, is the matzav until the condition is as they are standing now. So what happened over here during that period of time? That's what he's trying to do. So, as and he wanted to bring out as be'etzem haben die Eden gedarft da reinkommen in Eretz Yisrael. In essence, the Jews should have entered Eretz Yisrael bald immediately, noch sein beim Berg Sinai, after being at Mount Sinai. Und nur zu dem Chet HaMeraglim, it is only because of the sin of the spies, the scouters, haben sie sich verhalten im Midbar, they were delayed in the desert, the entire duration of the time. The Riber Musman der Zählung, this is what he's trying to tell them. So therefore, he needs to relate to them as shoin dan, that already then, when Eden seinen noch gewend bechorev, that when Eden were still in Chorev, beim Har Sinai, by Mount Sinai, hat sie der Eberster angesagt, as sie sollen gehen gleich in Eretz Yisrael. God has instructed them that they should go immediately to Eretz Yisrael. So, so now we understand is move on was the posik zokt Rav Lochem Sheves Bohorazeh. Too much sitting here. What is he trying to say? Because there is a goal here. We need to get to Eretz Yisrael. We can't stay here. Too much to stay here. Because this is to emphasize the stark is given the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how strong it was Hashem's wishes to Island, the Eden, to hasten the Jews, his own Baal, that hanging in Eretz Yisrael, they should immediately enter Eretz Yisrael. Rashi, to use Rashi's language, Rashi says, "V'kol kach hoiso shchina mislabetes b'shvilchem lemahir bi'aschem le'oretz." So much so, the divine was working on for you to hasten your coming to Eretz Yisrael. Biz, to the extent that this was so important, as need the grace of Milas, notwithstanding the great advantages, was as bring Zeri Yeshiva Bahar Sinai, that sitting at Mount Sinai brings such greatness, that Yeder Farzamen sich dorten. So any delay that you delay there, ubemelen it gain to Eretz Yisrael, therefore you're not going to Eretz Yisrael, it becomes Yeser Midai. It's too much to sit here. Why? Because notwithstanding the benefits, we have to go to Eretz Yisrael. That's why Rashi learns Kipshutai, that it means too much, not because there is not great advantages in Har Sinai, but we have to get to Eretz Yisrael, and that's why it's Yeser Midai. But that interpretation is not fully, because it doesn't say it's just because you need to get to Eretz Yisrael. It almost seems like Rav Lochem Sheves Bahor, as if there is something wrong, too much sitting in the mountain. In this case, we're saying we got to go to Eretz Yisrael, but it almost understood in Pashtus that there is something wrong with staying in the mountain, and therefore Rashi brings down the Medrash Agoda that the Rav does not mean too much, but as you get a lot of reward. Vov, that Pirush is ober nit blatik. This interpretation is not smooth. From Loshen Rav Lochem Sheves, it's enough to you to sit. Yeser Midai, too much, is mashma. It appears as the Yeshiva Bahar is nit kefi harotzin, that sitting in the mountain is not the way Hashem wants. B'shas azer verhalten sich Bahar, but the lay on the mountains, the Ba'al Chanoyis wasn't something up to the Yidden. The cloud didn't go up, so they stayed there. Is given up Yitzivah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This was by the instruction of Hashem. Kolzman is nit given nale ha'onon, as long as the cloud didn't go up, so they couldn't move. That Eibishter hat sie nit geheißen weggehen from dort. Hashem did not instruct them to leave there. Is Zeir Shebes Bahor, so it means sitting in the mountain. Given al pi Hashem means Hashem wants them to sit there. That's Kiyum Rotzen Ha'elyon. That is fulfilling the wishes of the Supreme, of Hashem. If he's up my Yeser Midai, so how could you say they're sitting there more than enough? That's why Rashi brings a second interpretation of Medrash Agoda. As Rav Lochem meant nit kipshutei, but Rav Lochem doesn't mean literally mervi genug, it's more than enough. But harbe lochem gedula v'schar, you get a lot of greatness and reward. Rav from Loshen Ribu, Rav comes from the language of a lot. Das heißt, that means feel gedula v'schar, lots of greatness and lots of reward. Now, Rashi wants to tell us now, even though we're saying that this Rav means you're getting a lot of reward, but Rashi wants to associate it that this pasuk is being said over here as a introduction for them going into Eretz Yisrael. That's why he doesn't mention the passing about Midras that ever pointed out. In order to explain, as euch loit dem pirush, that also according to this commentary, is there mekuvan from them zogun zu in? What is the intent? Why are we saying to the Yidden, Rav lochem sheves b'horazeh, that you have? There's a lot, the lot sheborazeh. Su island dem pnu sulachem. It's also meant to hasten up, just like in the first shot. But even here, the intent is pnu sulachem the ma'ir bi'aschem la'oretz, to hasten your coming to the land. And that explains why it's mentioned over here in Parshas Devarim. Moshe Rabbeinu is repeating it to them, even though it doesn't mention it in the Parshas Ba'aloischa where it talks about living. He's telling them that the Rav Lochem Sheves B'horazeh, that you're getting a lot of reward, and that is to hasten the Pnu Sulachem, to hasten their coming into the land of Yisrael. Was der far vert wegen der Amiras HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that it sailed beParshasenu Davke. That's why about this saying of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's related in our Parsha, Keniske Le'il. So therefore, is Rashi nit maitik the Loshen HaSifri, as the Rebbe said before, it looks like Loshen, but no, nor the Medrash Agoda, but the Medrash Agoda. The Loshen is Asisa Mishkan, the Noira Vikelim, Kibaltem Torah, and Manisi Lochem Sanhedrin. Vorum, so Rashi quotes the Medrash Agoda rather than the Sifri. And over there, it fits the Loshen for Rashi's purpose to explain why we're a preparation and hastening to go to Eretz Yisrael. It comes first, Asisa Mishkan. We mentioned Menorah V'Kelim separately, and Kibat, then we talk about Kabbalah Satoida, and then Manistachem Saned. But in Davke Dizachon, and them say that because it's specifically these items in this order, Bavaisen the greatkeit from Eden to gain Eretz Yisrael. They demonstrate the readiness of the Yidden to go to Eretz Yisrael, Kidul Kamon, as the Rebbe will explain. The Rebbe will explain how these specific order and these specific details explain that to us. So the Rebbe says that it's basically we got to prepare the Yidden to make themselves a holy nation where Hashem rests a permanent way. Hashem should rest with them, not like there. And that is the way you come into a settled land. And you have to have the presence of Hashem, and you have to have the Torah to teach you. And you need the Sanhedrin to help you, guide you, so you know what to do. Let's look inside. Zayin. Eider in seinen Arain in an eigener Land, before the Yidden entered into their own land, in an Eretz Neisheves, in a settled land, was there Seder Achayim in an Eretz Neisheves, the order of the way you live in a settled land, Kichol Ha'amim, like all nations, Ken Chaz V'Sholem der Firen, this can, God forbid, lead as Eden sollen vergessen, if their Anderskeit von alle Völker, that the Jews might forget their differences from all the other nations. Haben sie früher gedacht, verfestigen in sich. So they first needed to strengthen in themselves, to make strong then Ba'atem Tili Mamlechas Kohanim B'Goy Kodesh, that they need to be a nation of people, they need to be a holy nation. Das soll bei sie nikva werden. That should be settled by them in Azah Eufen to such a way, such an extent, as gefinden sich später in an Eretz Nesheves. So even as they find themselves later on in a settled land, so they zayin agoy kodesh, they should still remain a holy nation, zgulam mikol amim, a treasure from all nations. They should be a treasured nation. In their far is given the yeshiva Bahar Sinai. And that's why there was the sitting, the time they spent on Mount Sinai. Those of the that accomplished, as Eden Zolun Veren Agoy Kodesh, that the Eden should become a holy nation. Islam is a completely holy nation. Because in them, there are three general matters that need to happen for the Yidden to become this wholesome Goy Kodesh, to continue that where they're going to move into the settled land. And the Nekuda Ikris from Goy Kodesh is what is the main point of a holy nation. To use the language of the Pasuk, Kedoshim tiyu kikodesh oni. You shall be holy because I am holy. Memuz zayin agoy kodesh. We need to be a holy nation. While kodesh ani is v'shachanti b'seichel. Because I am holy and I rest amongst you. I am dwelling amongst you. And therefore, asisem mishkan. Es ist da amokim kavua vu es is shoyne kedushosu shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is a permanent place in which the sanctity of Hashem rests, so that will continue that permanence of the Mishkan. Es ist nicht genug der Gilu Elikus, was is given by Matan Torah. It's not sufficient, the revelation of godliness that took place when the Torah was given. You need a Mishkan. Der koil elikim medaber mitoich ha'esh. We would say Hagodel, the great thing is what? That medaber ha'esh, that wouldn't be sufficient. But this is given lifi shah, that was temporary. Unit an inyan from v'shachanti b'soichem b'kfiyus. That wasn't, I'm resting amongst you in a permanent way. We need the Shekhinah a permanent way. That is the Mishkan. The bald as do is the hadgosha oifaza oifan hashros hashchina, because here the emphasis is in what capacity, what kind of the dwelling of the divine was spoiled oif Eden, oich vize zainin in an eres neshavas, that impacts the Eden even as they are in a settled land. The riber telt Rashi ois menoira von alle klei Mishkan. And that's why Rashi says you built the Mishkan and the Menorah, and he singles it out to mention it specially outside of all, besides all the other vessels of the Mishkan. While Menorah, Rashi Mefarish given, because Rashi already explained about the Menorah, as he is Eidus L'chol Boye Olam Shashchina Shoyre B'Yisrael. That is a testimony for all people of the world that the divine rests by Yidden. So that is the first thing in the Shekhinah, the Kviyas, and that is specifically through the Kelim, the Mishkan in general, and specifically the Menorah has that quality, and the rest of the Kelim. Danach kommt Kibaltem Torah. Then comes, you receive the Torah. As the Ausgetiltkeit from Goy Kodesh, this distinction that the Yid Atem Tili Mamleches Koine v'Goy Kodesh that took place in Matan Torah, that distinction from Goy Kodesh that takes place durch der Hashros Hashchina in Mishkan, through the resting of the Shekhinah in the Mishkan, hot a Hashpoe und Macht anders, that has an impact, an influence, and makes changes, Kodesh and Mufresh, to make holy and distinguish the Anhoga from Eden, the conduct of a Yid in every place, and in their day-to-day life. Durch them was they seinen mekabel the Torah v'hayirah from them Eberstein, through receiving the Torah and the lessons from Hashem. So, in order for the Hashros Hashchina to make a difference, they must receive the Torah to change and lead their lives according to the instruction of the Torah. Okay, in order for them to know and to exactly understand what are the lessons of the Torah, then you need a third aspect, Minui HaSanhedrin. You have to appoint the Sanhedrin. They learn the Eden. They teach the Yidden the Dine Vinyone HaTorah, the laws and the matters of Torah. Weisen wie sie sollen ausführen die Heroes HaTorah bepoil. They show how one needs to accomplish and do the lessons of the Torah and actually how to do them. And the meat is move on. This is also gives us another. So basically, these are the order of the three things of the Mishkan, the Kavod. This is all about the Goy Kodesh, the Mishkan, the Kaviyas. Then we have the Torah to teach us how the Shekhinah changes our life. And the one who shows us in actuality is the Sanhedrin. But now we also understand why we don't talk about the 50 and the 100. Sorry, Chamishim, sorry, Meis. The meat is euch movon for was Rashi bringt nor sorry Alofim, sorry, Meis. Why he only brings down officers over 1,000 and officers over 100. Nitvi in Sifri Me'akosim. Doesn't quote the Posik as the Sifri quotes it. Euch, sorry, Chamishim, sorry, Asori is also the officers appointed over 50 and those appointed over 10. So those was memane given euch sorry chamishim or sorry asoris, the fact that they also appointed officers for 50 and officers for 10 is not given if meshach zaman. That was only for the duration of the time was Eden seine given baderech in Midbar while they were journeying on the road in the desert. Gefinnen sich in Masoes ba Midbar, that while they were in the journeys in the Midbar, the Tiltule Haderech and the movements of the road V'chulu, Fodern sich sorim, then you need to, is required to have officers, oif klemere kvutzes, also on smaller groups. We need it for 50 and for 10. Aber when Eden seinen Arain in Eretz Yisrael, but once they enter Eretz Yisrael, in an Eretz Nasheves, in a settled land, Mokum Kavu, in a set place, you don't need any more officers over 50. And certainly not officers over 10. Since Rashi only mentions those aspects which are necessary to the greatkeit Leben in Eretz Yisrael, to be prepared to live in Eretz Yisrael v'agoy kodesh as a holy nation, der monter nor, that's why he only mentions sorei alofim v'sorei meis, only the officers of thousands and 100, but not 50 and 10, because that's not going to last through for them. And this is talking about the preparation in going in Eretz Yisrael, which they needed. The Mishkan and the Menorah is that set. The Shekhinah is by Yidden, and then the Torah is how to live their life. The Sanhedrin teach them, and that is for the preparation as they're going to go in Eretz Yisrael. Oisches. Apikol Hanal wird man nicht verstehen dem Tam von die andere Shinuya Halishoines in Pirush Rashi legabe Loshen HaSifri the Le'il Siv Gimel. Based on all the above, we'll also be able to understand the reason for the other changes in Rashi's language in his commentary relative to the language, the way it's in the Sifri that the Rebbe brought down earlier in Siv Gimel. Like Rashi is Kavonas HaPosik, Rav Lochem V'Goymer. According to Rashi, what is the Posik intending when it says Rav Lochem to Mirames Zayin nit stam in Yoni Schar vos Iden hoben bakumen bahor hazeh. It's not just matters of reward that the Eden received on that mountain, nor was the yeshiva bahar of Oivgiton, but rather that which sitting on the mountain has accomplished, as Eden zon ver buchen zu der Knisa la'aretz, that the Yidden should become ready to enter in the land. Und der Far bagnugen sich nit Rashi mit dem Loschen. So Rashi is not satisfied with the Loschen of Schar. Und sagt euch harbe lochem gedula, you also have greatness. But the Iker is do the gedula, because it's mainly the greatness zu welche Eden seinen zurückgekommen durch Yeshivosum Bahar, that they came to, that they reached by sitting on the mountain, the Goy Kodesh. Bebald as the Gedula is need the Yeshiva Bahar Gufa, since it's not just sitting in the mountain, nor dos, was is gekommen als Teitzoe von der Yeshiva Bahar. It's a result of sitting in the mountain, not the mountain itself. The Rebbe sagt Rashi, Rashi does not say sitting on the mountain, nor schar al yeshivaschem, because of your sitting. Yesh loimar, the Rebbe says we can say as the zwei Lashonos in Rashi, Gedula uschar, seinem verbunden mit die zwei Inyonim mit Knisa la'oretz verstehen do behemshach ha'psukim. They're associated with the two matters of entering into Eretz Yisrael, which the psukim talk in the following psukim. Aleph, the number one is that etzem areinkumen ken Eretz Yisrael, just the entry itself into Eretz Yisrael. Of them forte sich as the Eden Zolon haben Gedula. For that, it is required that the Eden have Gedula. Sie darfen sein Mamlechas Kahanim v'Gei Kodesh Kenal. They need to be a nation of priests and a holy nation Kenal. So that's just to enter Eretz Yisrael. Base, but the second thing is that Oifun HaKnisa, how they enter. It says Boyu Urishus. Boyu Urishu, come in and inherit. Ein Ma'arer Bedover. There would be nobody just come in and inherit it. Nobody will challenge this. They don't need, they would not have needed any ammunition. Das is aschar. This is the reward. Das was Innam Bakume for them was getan bisman Yeshivasum Bahar. It's a reward. That's a reward that they said. So the Gedula is that they became a Goy Kodesh. The reward is that they didn't need the ammunition, and the reward that they got for sitting at the mountains. And that's the two Lashonos. Test of Derech Zeb and again Minus Sanhedrin. Similar, it's also in the appointing of the Sanhedrin. By which there were two things. There was a tzivui uminui. It was an instruction, and there was also appointment. Eins, during the Eberstein, the Eberstein told and Hashem will instruct you. Then you will be able to take. That was the Minus Sanhedrin by Elikim. And two, durch Vayivchar Moshe unhavu lachem, the Moshe chose and they brought to them. So in Sifri, woman bring tarois inyan haschar over there, we are bringing out the idea of reward gegeben from the Eberste, what the Eberste gave, is that Madgish, so there he emphasizes what Manisi Aleichem, the Eberste pointed to you, but Sivchalekim. Rashi, welcher is also the Gedula from the Eden, but Rashi, who is meaning to talk about the greatness of the Eden, Rashi is mainly the Gedula, is Manisam Lochem. That's the second aspect that you appointed to you. It was both there, but the question is, what is the more emphasis? So in the Sifri, it's mainly about the schar which Hashem gave you, and in the Rashi, it's mainly the gedula that that the Yidden had in the fact that they counted themselves at the Sanhedrin. So here the Rebbe is going to bring out Yenishal Torah, that the heading of the Rashi just brings down the words Rav Lochem Sheves, or Rav Lochem, but in the second, the Pirush of the Agoda, it says Sheves Bahar. The Rebbe is going to learn from it that as long as sitting just Bahar isn't something that a Yid has to do, it has to move on. Let's look at Rashi. Rashi is mighty from Posuk Nor Diverte Rav Lochem Sheves. He just quotes from the verse, enough for you sitting. On Diverte Baharazeh, without the words of this mountain. And he translated literally. Und erst in the Medrash Agoda bringt the Wörter, it's only in the later on in Agoda. The first Rashi says Kipshute, the meaning of there's just a Rav Lochem, Sheves. And in the Medrash Agoda later on, when he brings down Medrash Agoda, bringt the Wörter over there, he brings the word Bahar Hazeh. Yes, we can say as the meters and meramis ahiro klolis in avedus Hashem. This is a general lesson in the service of Hashem. Ad id dar wissen, the Yid needs to know, as a matzah from Sheves, if to sit, bleiben sitzen auf einor, to remain sitting in one place, which would mean stein if there is elber darge ba'avidosu yizbarach, to stand on the same step, same level in the blessed service of Hashem, and need gain weiter and hecher, not to go further and higher, is Rav Lochem kipshutei. That is harba yeser midai. That is way too much. Wie gut and hoicha soll sein dargosi ba'avodah. No matter how high your level it should be in avodah, is over a hemshech zman for bleiben sitzen, but the period of time just to remain sitting of the zolber darge on the same level is abgegeben of them zu viel Zeit. Then you're giving up too much time for the same level. A Yid darf sein am Mahalach. A Yid needs to be constantly going. Keseder streben zu gehen als Hecher, always strive to go higher. Mailin ba'kodesh, to keep on going. So, therefore, in the Kapshute is Rav Lochem Sheves, that's not enough. That's like a dai, the Kapshute, and it has to be, as the Medrash Agoda is Bahar Hazeh, you have to climb the mountain, you have to keep on going. Yidalef, Nochairovas, we can listen from them Pirush Rashi, an additional lesson you can learn from this Rashi. We get at Kama Pa'omim, as we spoke many times, alle Pirushim of Zelm Posik, all interpretations on the same verse, Ashaycha Zelozeh, have a connection to one another. Ubefrad benidin dedan, especially in our case, the zwei Pirushim, was Rashi bring the Pirushi, these two commentaries Rashi brings in his comment, one Rashi, there's a connection. This is the hero. This is the lesson. The zwei inyonim b'shayches the knisel eres, the two aspects as it relates to going into the land. All of the Pirush kipshutei, the simple meaning, as Eden darfen gain, was schneller koiver sein Eretz Yisrael with pashtus, that Eden must go as quickly as possible to conquer Eretz Yisrael, literally. That's kipshutei. Based the Pirush as thus main the Achon Ruchni is second that this is the spiritual preparation to the Kedisa La'aretz, to the entering of the land. As he said, Mishkan Chulu, Kibaltim Torah, you made the Mishkan, you received the Torah. Manisim Lechem Sanhedrin, you made the appointed Sanhedrin Chulu, Zayin and Toli Zebazeh. They are hinged one on another. After the Farvos Mahot Agoy Kodesh. It's specifically Vos Mi'iz Agoy Kodesh. We are a holy nation. Mahot Harbe Gedula V'Schar, like the Agoda says. There's a lot of greatness and a lot of reward. Bakum Ben Eretz Yisrael. That's why we get Eretz Yisrael. Because of the greatness we get Eretz Yisrael. Verkerti by andere Völker, just the opposite by other nations. Other nations become a nation from the land. We are a people, and then we get the land. Verkehrt by andere Völker, was werden a folk, verbunden, how do they become a people, other nations? It's verbunden mit bakum a land, wo sie leben, that's associated with receiving a land in which they live. By the Eden is the Indian for Rav Lochem Sheves Kipshute. By the Eden, a lot to sitting Kipshute, which means they're Meharir, Lemair, this with the positive Ashitash Kipshute. The Lemair be Aschem Loritz is not a Mehirus Bizman. It's not just a hasting in time, nor Eichel be Iker, but it's also mainly a Mehirus Be'oifun from the Aschem. It describes the haste in how they come. Durch Pirush Hasheni, through the second Pirush, Ribu Gedula, Ein Ma'arer Bedor, there is nobody complaining, Bli Milchama, without war, Bli Klizayim, without ammunition. Because we have Eretz Yisrael, because we're a Goy Kodesh, because we are Kipshutei, it's Lahayrer, Bilaschem, we go quickly into Eretz Yisrael. We don't have any obstacles in going because it's not the land that's going to make us a people. We are a people that gives us the land. In other words, Sheiches von Eretz Yisrael zu Eden is im Ganzen anders wie bei anderen Völkern. The connection of Eretz Yisrael to Eden is entirely different than by other nations. By the Umas Olam Hod Zeir Land nit kin kesher atzmi mitzeh. The other nations of the world, the land does not have an essential connection, a tie with those nations that live there. That's why they need to have wage war for it, because it's not connected to them. As opposed to Eden, is there Eretz Yisrael and Eifon, the way they're connected to Eretz Yisrael is in such a way. Beis Eden sein in a matzah from Goy Kodesh Begoli is a sticker Begoli, and when Yidden are in a condition that they're a holy nation, you can actually see it openly. Adoslan Balang Be'etzem to Bnei Yisrael. The land, in essence, belongs to the Yidden. B'Lashoina Tanchuma, as the Tanchuma says, Bochar Be'eretz Yisrael Chulu, Bochar Chelek Yisrael. Shem chose Eretz Yisrael as his land. He chose the Jewish people as his portion. Let the Yidden who are the portion of Hashem, and let them inherit the land that came to the Eibishter's portion. And this comes through a covenant that came only to can never be disrupted, broken. That's why there's nobody challenging this. You don't need Muhammad. So it should be to us B'Korev Mamish very soon. As Eretz Yisrael we will merit to get Eretz Yisrael completely in an oifen, in a way for Ein Ma'arer B'Dover, nobody to complain about it. You don't need to wage war. Very speedily in our days. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Devarim, the Shabbos Parshas Ekev Tov Shin Mem.